Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. This is Julie Bruns, and you are about to be inspired. I am so excited to share my conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who figured out how to be happy, peaceful, and content doing work they love and making the world a better place so that you can see what's possible for your life. I can't wait to hear what you think. Send me an email and let me know one thing you're taking away from this episode. And never forget, anything really is possible. Welcome to this episode, everyone. My guest this week is Sam Varner. And Sam and I met through a media expert that reached out and pitched Sam to me and said, she'd love to be on your podcast. And I forget, I think her name was Sam, and maybe it was a boy or
it is
also Sam. And I said, my only prerequisite is that she loves what she does and wants to talk about it. And if that's not the case, okay. And she's like, no, yeah, she does. And so that's why we're talking today, Sam. So I know that you are a profit entrepreneurial coach, or profit coach for entrepreneurial women mostly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you can tell everyone what you do more of, but I want you to explain what you do and then explain what led you to do this work. Was it something you always knew you'd be doing, or did you have a completely different life and career before this? So let's start there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here. Okay, so what I do, I am a profit coach. So what that translates into is I'm a business coach that really focuses with my clients on profitability. So making sure that their business is structured in a way that they can create time freedom and financial freedom and building a business that actually supports their lifestyle. There are so many entrepreneurs out there that are kind of accidentally falling into like a hobby jobby kind of situation where they love what they do. They're really good at what they do, but in terms of understanding how to structure a business in a way that creates what they intended to create, that part's hard sometimes, right? So often we just don't have that training and that background. So we find a thing, we're super passionate, we're ready to go. And unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily immediately translate into the income that replaces the corporate income you left, or that just creates financial freedom in your life. So that's where I hop in and help.
I have a quick question regarding that, because I kind of fall into the category that you said, like most people will be very passionate about what they're doing and want to go and they're good at it, but then it's like, okay, well, how do you make money doing it? What's the percentage of people that you talk to that would you say when people jump and do the entrepreneurial thing, what percentage of women are like right away off the bat knowing what to do financially? I'm just curious from what your work you've done, like what percentage of women have that knowledge?
I would say
no.
Very, very few. And I think partially that's because women are a little bit less inclined to assume that they know or that they can do it, right? So do they not actually know what to do, or do they not have confidence in what they're doing? That number might be different. Yeah. But the vast majority of entrepreneurs that I speak to, when they first start, don't feel confident about how to actually price themselves or how to actually make money or how to manage the financial, like just tracking of their business in a way that is effective.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. What did you always, have you done this work for a long time, Sam, or did you do something else with finances earlier in your life? How'd you get into this?
A little bit of both. So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad had a construction business. So I kind of got bitten by the have a business owner, be your own boss bug early in my life. And then I went to school for communications and PR and marketing. So that was where I started. Then worked in agency for a little while. That shifted dramatically. The agency itself shifted dramatically. And I found myself falling accidentally into finance. So I ended up doing personal financial planning, business financial planning, estate planning, that sort of thing. Never was the intention, but found I loved talking to business owners and I loved helping them figure out how to get it going. So what ended up happening for me was I was working a corporate job, loving a corporate job, and my husband got a job offer in Australia. So at the time we lived in Canada, we're Canadian. We had a friend who said, hey, would you ever live in Australia? She was moving with this company. And we were like, of course, who wouldn't?
Mm-hmm.
Well, shortly thereafter, like really shortly, I think it was within, that discussion was in May, and we were in Australia July, the end of July. We had 2 little kids at that point. And so we moved to Australia, and I requalified to do exactly what I was doing corporately in Canada, in Australia. Had a couple of babies while we were in Australia, was looking at the workforce, figuring out what that was going to look like. And my husband came home and said, like, hey, what do you think of Texas? And I'm like, wait, what? Texas, USA?
Yeah. Not in Australia.
Like, not
right?
Australia, you're saying to me. And he's like, oh no, they've got an office there. They're wondering if we want to move. That is closer to family, right? A 4-hour flight versus a 30-hour flight was hugely appealing to us.
Mm-hmm.
But it meant I was going to have to requalify and do all of my licensing and exams and all the things again. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Fine, we can move to Texas. I'm excited about that, but I will build something of my own. So that's where I got into money coaching and financial coaching for individuals. Everybody that showed up had a business. It obviously is the way I speak, the way I attract clients, they're business owners. And so I just built a business that now I carry like a turtle shell. Now, of course, we've been in Texas for 8 years, so I didn't need to be so concerned about it. Yeah. But I built my own business at that point out of necessity, because I just wasn't going to do it again, and then potentially on repeat forever.
Smart. So out of necessity, I love that. And like you said, you were already good at it, something you were good at and that you liked. And then you said, all right, I'll be a money coach. And then the people that showed up were that there's your sign from the universe. Like, okay, I can coach women business owners. And if that's what was coming to you, that means, all right, I have this expertise, and that's obviously what's needed. So that was smart to just say, okay, I'll do that, instead of someone else might have just ignored that and said, oh, I don't want to just do business, women that own businesses. I want to do this other thing. And it's like, but that's what's needed. And obviously you're good at it, doing it for a while. Yeah. So that was smart. So you just kept modifying what you were doing. And I wanted to come up with another word for pivot, because I think pivot is used too much, but kind of like what you did. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll figure it out. Okay. Yeah. So as you were building, so you're in Canada, you moved to Australia, you moved to Texas. And as you're building your business, and your husband's obviously working in corporate America and a business, and you have small children, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life and work, what were you doing to remain happy, peaceful, and content along the way, and saying, okay, I'll get this certification or whatever I need to do here. Okay, then I'll just do this over here too. Obviously you have a good attitude about, all right, I'm kind of the same way. Like, all right, I guess I'll just figure it out. Like, I'm not going to, get mad or get frustrated. Like, I can figure that out in another place. We're smart, right? When you were doing all that, how are you like staying positive about it all, and like figuring out like, this is the good path for me? What were you doing? What practices did you have and stuff, mindset?
I love that you assume it was a positive mindset. I like that. I think at that time, not that it wasn't a positive mindset for me, but at that point, I've got 4 kids. So when we were leaving Australia, I'm just trying to figure out how old everybody was. Cassie would have been 6. Yeah, she would have been turning 6. Then I had Marcus, who was turning 4. James at that point was under 2, had just turned 2. And Harrison was 8 weeks old when we moved to Texas. So it was bananas. My life at that point, despite the fact I had done all of my training and stuff in Australia, I was knee deep in momhood, right? And 3 little boys in diapers and moving countries and having to sort all of that stuff out. So it gave me, I kind of knew moving to Texas originally, it was going to take me a little bit because I had already moved. I knew it's an 18-month turnaround before you feel like you really have your feet under you and you know where everything is and you start to establish relationships. So at that point, I knew by then Harrison would be almost 2. He'd be coming up on 2. So my youngest human would be 2. And I knew that when you get to that point, it would create some more freedom for me to do things at that point. So really, the business didn't really start besides me I did some coaching certifications. I did a lot of learning. I'm a huge reader. So I was doing that constantly because I love it, because it nourishes my brain in the way that, mumming of tiny humans doesn't always nourish your brain, right? It keeps you very active and very
right.
busy.
You're doing the nourishing. You're not being nourished. You're doing the nourishing. Yeah.
Yeah. You are very much like the Sherpa of small children and the on demand for everything they need, right? Especially at that point when they're so little. So that was kind of my mentality. Was I knew I needed time to not be trying to run a business right when I got here, but I knew that was always the intention. So I connected with women when I first moved here that were of the same mind. It wasn't necessarily even that we talked business, but we were talking about personal growth, personal development. And that sort of sphere was what I was able to create. It's kind of great that way. I think sometimes when we live in a place for a long time, your sphere becomes whatever it is, right? It's established. Moving to a new place, there's a little bit of like, I get to recreate, I get to rebuild whatever network I'm looking for. And if you have that, at least in the back of your mind, you're looking for certain people. You're looking for people that light you up and keep you going. So
yeah. So good. Yeah, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. You're like, okay, this is not the right time to launch the business. You have all these small kids, you just moved from another country. Why don't I just learn, which is nourishing you, which is obviously going to help you, and take the time, get the certifications, build it so that when you are ready, you have what you need in place instead of just saying, okay, I have to pause everything. It was smart. And it's helpful along the way to have another outlet, obviously, when and I have two boys, but I can imagine having four, especially that little. It's like you get another little outlet, you get to do something you love. It's lighting you up. You get to meet other people and you're building your network. So it's all smart things to be doing, even though you're not exactly where you want to be at that point in your business or your career, et cetera. So all really good stuff. All right. So when I'm sure this happens, I'm guessing, I shouldn't say I'm sure, when you are coaching women, business owners about their finances and being more profitable, I'm sure it comes up. I'm sure other questions about outside of finances come up, and they probably are related anyways. When people ask you, for advice and, all right, how would you do this or whatever, even if you haven't done the thing in their business yet before, because you have this expertise, what do you tell them? Like, what advice do you have for them? Or they love their business, but they're struggling in some other aspect of using their strengths for their business or whatever. What advice do you give people?
I think that, I mean, if I can bestow one thing on my clients, it is that they already know the answer, right? We are smarter than we give ourselves credit for always. And I like to think of myself as a tactical coach. So I often will ask the question to create their ability to drive the answer. Right. And that can be in any aspect of business, right? I'm talking to clients about sales skills and visibility and confidence and the money, the like tangible, what does your spreadsheet look like? All of that stuff. And I try really hard not to be the person with all the answers, because it becomes that they would be reliant on, as if I am the mystic with all the knowledge and they still have none, right? That doesn't empower them to go forth and be able to do it themselves. So that's my goal. Now, that being said, I do help with tactics. I do really get in the nitty gritty with them, but it is always from a perspective of, the answer of what you need to be doing next. And I will support you and or redirect if I think those are great, but I think this one stands out as the first step, right? That piece.
Yeah, that's where your expertise comes in. So smart. Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard of this. I was talking about this with another podcast episode a couple of weeks ago about super thinking. I don't know if you ever heard of it before, but it's
no, I haven't heard that term.
It's called, I heard about it through Amy Porterfield's podcast a couple of years ago, but it's not her tool. Someone else invented it. It's basically sitting down with yourself and asking yourself all your questions about your business. You can do this with your life too. I did around my business and for an hour, and you just keep writing the questions down. You can't have your computer, a phone, nothing. It's very hard, especially for people that are learners, like, I'll pick up a book or read something really quick, like to get your mind off it, right? It's really hard to do. And I just sat on the couch. I was comfortable. I had my tea. and I'm doing it, and 15 minutes in, I'm like, all right, I'm done. Like mentally, I'm done with this. And it's like, I promised myself I will do it for the full 60 minutes. It was so hard. But what happens is you get to this block, and then you have to just sit there. You're like, okay, I'm kind of stuck here. It's like a kid in detention, like, I guess I'll just keep working. And it's amazing, to your point about knowing the answers. You write down the questions and leave space. And if I didn't know the answer, I would just ask myself this question. And just like you're talking to a friend, and it's stuff you already know, but you're like, what do you think? And you're like, I'm thinking this. And then they give you something else. No, I'm really more drawn towards this. I'm sure you do this with your husband too. And there's all that. And some of them, right away. And other ones, you're like, oh, skip this. I'll go to another one. I just kept writing questions down. I had pages and pages and pages, and an hour is a long time. But you are trusting yourself, and you are getting quiet and reflecting on the things that you probably already know the answers to. And then it's amazing what your hand comes up with, like, I'll just do this. And this is so simple. And it's also interesting to note that most of the answers weren't like super detailed, drawn out things. It was like, here's the answer. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. Yeah. It's such a cool tool. And would probably help you with your coaching too, but I'd never heard of it before. But I was like, oh my gosh. And it's so great that instead of you saying like, I can help you, you're going to need me, you're saying, no, you really probably already know. I'll help you with the tactical things, but what are you thinking? And then to get people to trust themselves, to have this confidence, to trust themselves more, to like reflect on their intuition. It's like so valuable, and we're so much smarter than we give ourselves credit for, especially women. This is not to male bash or anything. It's just this. The confidence is just not there as much, we're just second guessing ourselves more. So I love that you're one of those coaches that says, no, so you tell me what you think first. It's like being a good parent. I think it's the same thing, like
I do that all the time,
right? Like, Mom, what do you think? It's like, well, what do you think? And usually they're pretty spot on with when they have those skills and they're old enough, they're pretty spot on with what they need to do. It's like, let them trust themselves. And then they have the confidence. And then even if they make their mind decision, they have the confidence to make a different decision. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, I think entrepreneurs and kids, right? All of us are constantly, you are taking action and evaluating what that action does. Yeah. Sometimes a good human portion of it is failure, right? It's like, I did a thing, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Okay, do I want to tweak it a little bit? Do I want to completely dismiss that strategy and come up with something else? Yeah. What do I want to do? And I think I often will say to my kids, probably ad nauseum for them, is they will say to me, I don't know. And I'm like, that's not an answer. You're smarter than that. You have to come up with something, right? It's not a right or wrong, but it's like, come up with something tangible, not just, I don't know. That's not a thing.
That's the best. And I have a teaching degree too. So it was like, when it's just an easy kind of lazy way to say, like, you tell me, I don't know. You do know. You just don't want to say it because it's going to cause work, or you don't want to say it because you're afraid of just not pleasing someone or whatever. You usually do know. And teaching them that early is a great parenting tip. I'm glad you brought that up. So important. And we wouldn't have more of this doubt. There wouldn't be as much of a need for the coaches later on if you could kind of get this going earlier, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so all right, is there anything you wished you learned earlier in your life or career?
I think it's probably right along the theme that we're talking about, right? It's self-trust. It's knowing that I wish I would have been bold enough to want to start my own business far earlier. But I look back and I think I can see it. You can always look at it two ways, right? You can look back and see, like, I needed all of those things to happen in order to be ready to do the thing, in order to get the experience, right? If I had tried to start my business when I was, 20 years old, what did I know at that point? Right. Not much. What am I coaching you on? I've had no exposure to business at that point besides my dad, so it was a necessary learning, but I also think there is so much opportunity being an entrepreneur. If I had, the first 10 years of my career being developed, if I was 10 years farther along in the track that I am right now, what would that look like? Is kind of something I wish I would have been like, maybe I should dabble this on the side as I go. Maybe that would have been cool. But I think all of those lessons, right, are just things we learn along the way.
Yeah, totally. Excuse me. That's one of a big thing for me too, is like the self-trust earlier, like that I was questioning things that I really shouldn't have been questioning, or going to other people for answers when I really had them myself, or I was smarter than I thought I was, etc.
Yeah.
Going back to like just doubting and thinking that the answers lie out there, and they really don't. And most of them, you can always get answers to things you don't know about, but that's not really usually what we're talking about. We're talking about something you already know. Yeah. So
yeah. Otherwise, you can YouTube a video for how to change a faucet or whatever, right? Things you actually don't know.
I don't know that. I don't care to. When I need to know it, I'll look it up and then I'll be done with it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I have two final questions for you. You can answer them in whatever order you want. So one is, what is your greatest gift you offer the world every day? So you have to brag. And then the other one is, what's one thing you're taking away from our conversation? What's one thing new you're taking away from our conversation today?
Okay. The one thing I think I'm going to take away from our conversation today is really realizing, or just, re-clarifying how much self-trust is the biggest factor in everything. And I know that, right? Like, it's one of those things where you know it, but today that really stands out from our conversation in terms of in our parenting, in our businesses, in just our day-to-day lives, having faith in the fact that we are as smart as we think we are when we are bragging about ourselves, right? Like that is truth. And then I guess in terms of the bragging about things, there is nothing I love more than getting into the weeds in business with a client, or, somebody I know in my life that I chat with business with a lot of people, right? Clients or otherwise. And being able to reflect back what I know they're capable of in a way that they can see it for themselves, right? It's kind of like, I feel like I get to hold up a mirror and show them themselves and be like, you said you want to create whatever that result is. You 100% can create it. And I think watching that shift in their mind over the course of our coaching relationship, from me telling them and me being the one with the belief, to getting to the point where I can see that belief growing in themselves as they create those results, or just believe that it exists. There is nothing better than that. It is amazing to watch that transformation and know the ripple effects go everywhere, right? It's not just our businesses. You start to feel like kind of just an amazing boss and an amazing entrepreneur, and you start to create results. That shifts in your parenting, in your relationships, in your friendships. It's pretty cool to think of how much of an impact long-term I know I'm having for these women and their families and their kids. And I'm just really grateful to get to do that work, and that I love doing it as much as I do.
I love that. What I heard you say when you said what you're giving them is like, you're really just empowering them. And you had mentioned empowerment earlier in the conversation. It's like you're originally, they think you have the answer, but you believe that they can do it. And then they start believing they can do it, and they're empowered to do it. And now you're like you said, it reflects, it shifts, it leads into everything else in their lives, personally and professionally. And then like, kind of, the sky's the limit, but they had to trust themselves. And that's awesome. That's a great gift. Empowering people. That's what you're doing. Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so fun getting to know you and your work. And I feel like we're very aligned in our thinking, and trying to empower people and transform and inspire. So kudos to you for doing that good work. And if someone wants to work with you, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to find you and work with you?
There's probably two great ways. One is find me on Instagram. It is shecollective.biz. So that is the best place to find me on the web. And then otherwise, following my podcast, She Needs Grit, and it's on all the players. So it's everywhere. There's links to it on Instagram as well, but then you can get a little bit more of me in your ears. And otherwise, then DM me on Instagram. I'm always happy to talk shop. So
awesome. That's cool. I didn't know you had a podcast. Congratulations on all the work you're doing, and good for you for following your heart and saying to your husband, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do something on my own. And you did. And that's what this is all about. Like, it is possible. And you're proof. I'm proof. And that's what we need more of. So good for you.
Yes. Thank you very much. This was great. I loved our conversation.
Me too. Thanks, everyone. See you guys next week. Bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, review, and share it. I hope you were truly inspired. And for a little more inspiration, don't forget to pick up my book, Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective: 8 Secrets to Serenity and Satisfaction in Your Life and Career. I can't wait to get you love in your life.